guys, welcome to SosinIAS Academy. This is Hima Hegde presenting before you
The current and contemporary affairs in anthropology.
tribal contributions to the Indian society. Adivasi traditions and practices pervade all aspects of Indian culture and civilization, yet, this awareness is often lacking in popular consciousness, and the extent and import of Adivasi contributions to Indian philosophy, language, and custom have often gone unrecognized or been underrated by historians and social scientists. Although popular myths about Buddhism have obscured the original source and inspiration for its humanist doctrine, it is to India's ancient tribal or the Adivasi societies that Gautama Buddha looked for a model for the kind of society he wished to advocate. Repulsed by how greed for private property was instrumental in causing poverty, social exploitation, and unending warfare, he saw hope for human society in the tribal republics that had not yet come under the sway of authoritarian rule and caste discrimination. The early Buddhist sanghas were modeled on the tribal pattern of social interaction that stressed gender equality and respect for all the members. Members of the sanghas sought to emulate their egalitarian outlook and democratic functioning. At the time, the tribal republics retained many aspects of social equality that can still be found in some Adivasi societies that have somehow escaped the ill effects of commercial plunder and exploitation. Adivasi society was built on foundation of equality with respect for all life forms including plants and trees. There was a deep recognition of mutual dependence in nature and human society. People were given respect and status according to their contribution to social needs, but only while they were performing that particular function. Such a value system was sustainable as long as the Adivasi community was non acquisitive and all the products of the society were shared. It was the simplicity, the love of the nature, and the absence of coveting the goods and wealth of the others, and the social harmony of tribal society that attracted Gautam Buddha and had a profound impact on the ethical core of his teachings. Nevertheless, the tribal societies were under constant pressure as the money economy grew and made traditional forms of barter less difficult to sustain. In matters of trade, the Adivasis followed a highly evolved system of honor. All agreements that they entered into were honored, often the entire tribe chipping into honor an agreement made by an individual member of the tribe. Individual dishonesty or deceit were severely punished by the tribe. An individual who acted in a manner that violated the honor of the tribe faced potential banishment, and family members lost their right to participate in the community events during the period of punishment. But often, tribal integrity was undermined because the non tribals who traded with the Adivasis reneged on their promises and took advantage of the sincerity and honesty of the tribal members. Tribal societies came under stress due to several factors: the extension of commerce, military intrusions on tribal land, and the resettling of Brahmins amidst tribal population. Also, some of the spontaneous differentiation within tribal societies took place over time, which propelled these now unequal tribal communities into integrating into Hindu society without external violence or coercion. In central India, ruling dynasties emerged from within the ranks of tribal societies. Now, India's regional languages such as Oriya, Marathi, and Bengali developed as a result of the fusion of tribal languages with Sanskrit or Pali, and virtually all the Indian languages have incorporated word from the vocabulary of Adivasi languages. In India's central belt, Adivasi communities rose to prominence and developed their own ruling clans. Adivasi musical instruments such as the basuri, that is the flute, and dhol, that is the drum, folk tales, dances, and seasonal celebrations also found their way into Indian traditions, as did their art and metallurgical skills. Now, if we were to talk about Adivasis and the freedom movement, as soon as the British took over eastern India, the tribal revolts broke out to challenge the alien rule. In the early years of colonization, no other communities in India offered such heroic resistance to British rule or faced such tragic consequences as did the numerous Adivasi communities of now Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, and Bengal. In 1772, the Paharia revolt broke out, which was followed by a 5-year uprising led by Tilka Manjhi, who was hanged in Bhagalpur in 1785. But the defeat of 1858 only intensified the British exploitation of national wealth and resources. A forest regulation passed in 1865 empowered the British government to declare any land covered with trees or brushwood as government forests and to make rules to manage it under the terms of its own choosing. As punishment for Adivasi resistance to British rule, the Criminal Tribes Act was passed by the British government in 1871 arbitrarily. Adivasi uprisings in the Jharkhand belt were quelled by the British through massive deployment of troops across the region. The Kherwar uprising and the Birsa Munda movement were the most important of the late 18th century struggles against the British rule and their local agents. Let's have a look at various dimensions of epidemiology. Collaboration between anthropology and epidemiology has a long history. Based on empirical examples, several research papers describe a number of epistemological lessons that they have learnt with their experience of cross disciplinary collaboration. Although critical of both mainstream epidemiology and medical anthropology, the analysis would focus on the implications of addressing each discipline's main epistemological differences while addressing the goal of adopting a broader social approach to the health improvement. So here's a multidisciplinary approach. That is, it is important to push the boundaries of research collaborations from the more standard forms of multidisciplinarity to the adoption of theoretically imbued interdisciplinarity. An applied or as applied medical anthropology has become a more centered discipline in public health over the last 30 years, challenges and debates relating to cross disciplinary collaboration, particularly with epidemiologists, have come to the fore. The demand for the anthropological input in public health emerged less from academic epidemiology and more from the limitations that professionals in the leading organizations such as the World Health Organization and bilateral donor agencies experienced when relying solely on epidemiology for improving program development, evaluation, and implementation. As a result, a certain template for expected ways of collaborating developed. Most commonly, applied epidemiological projects now generally incorporate sub-studies based on use of qualitative methods, usually in a so-called formative phase, to be carried out by anthropologists. In this particular template, the anthropologist's role has consisted largely of helping epidemiologists adapt standardized measurement tools to specific contexts, providing a descriptive narrative of the patient's subjective experiences or explaining the reasons for the failure of a particular programmatic initiative. While this form of collaboration is generally deemed useful in a general sense, the inclusion of qualitative components in public health research initially proved difficult. The merits of including qualitative studies have not always been widely endorsed, and more than once the authors of the paper noted comments made by colleagues that multidisciplinarity has been engaged in more out of lab service to donors than real analytical need. For many anthropologists, in turn, the development of applied medical anthropology within the larger public health and epidemiological framework belittled the potential of anthropological contributions. That is, a view that polarized the anthropological community. While many anthropologists embrace the challenge of working in public health, others rightly highlighted that applied anthropology has more often than not been used in a superficial way, devoid of theory and reduced to an oversimplified methods toolkit. Fundamental differences between the two disciplines have rarely been acknowledged outside academic settings to the extent that collaboration between the two disciplines has occurred in a parallel rather than cross fertilizing fashion.